going to start now.
Okay.
I cannot hear you, Ivan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Sorry for that. Yeah. Thank you for
It's all right.
inviting.
It's all right. Yeah. Nice to see you. And anyway, I'm going to start the webinar today. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It is AsiaGraphics webinar today, and I'm Fanglie Zhang from Victoria University of Wellington. I'm very glad to chair this session. So now I'm going to share the screen to do a brief introduction of this webinar session. So today it is the 5th session of AsiaGraphics webinar, and I will be chairing this session. And I am very happy to chair it because we have two very excellent speakers today. Professor Xuejin Chen and Dr. Yifan Peng will be giving two excellent talks about the microscopy image processing as well as computational photography. So each talk will be about 35 to 40 minutes. So after each talk, we will have Q&A time. So during the talks, if any audience have any questions, you can type your question in any chat channel if you are watching it on different platforms. And our team will collect all the questions and send them to me, and I will read them out to the speakers. Otherwise, you could also wait until each speaker finishes their talks and directly communicate with the speaker. So our first talk will be given by Professor Xuejin Chen. So Xuejin Chen is currently a professor at the University of Science and Technology of China. She worked as a postdoctoral scholar at Yale University from 2008 to 2010. She has been a well-recognized expert in 3D modeling, geometry processing, and biomedical image analysis. And today, she will be talking about 3D reconstruction and morphological analysis for neurons from large-scale microscopy images. So please, let's welcome Professor Xuejin Chen. And now I will stop sharing my screen. And it's yours now, Xuejin.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So, now you can see my screen, right? You can see my slides.
Yes. And I can also see your cursor, your mouse.
So, thank you. Thanks, Professor Zhang, for introduction. And it's my great honor to introduce our work. The title of my talk is 3D reconstruction and morphological analysis for neurons from large-scale microscopic images. Actually, when I was invited for this session, I struggled a lot to figure out, a proper topic for the audience in computer graphics. And I decided to talk about our work on neuron reconstruction and morphology analysis. It seems that it's very different for the research in computer graphics, but actually all the techniques and methods we use all from 3D vision and 3D graphics community. So I wish I could provide a different perspective for the audience in CG community to see how we can apply the CG techniques in different areas. Well, because of the faster development of various data acquisition methods, we can capture color images and 3D point clouds and volumetric data. And we have witnessed the significant success of 3D modeling technique in different scenario applications. For example, the virtual reality, scene understanding, and the human computer interactions. And actually, because of the great success of the 3D modeling techniques, it has also been widely applied in biomedical areas. And today I will talk about our work, in particularly for neuroscience. And uh, we know that a lot of countries have launched the Human Brain Project, which aims to investigate the multi-level organization of the human brain at different spatial temporal scales. And because of the fast development of the data acquisition and data computing and the storage, I think we get a huge data explosion for biomedical areas. And for scientists in neuroscience, they uh, spend a lot of time to build a human brain atlas from this in multiple skills in space and time, and want to combine or integrate multimodal data. Um, with one of the key components in the Human Brain Project is to utilize a very broad toolbox for the most advanced information and communication techniques to uh, help the help the decoding the human brain. And well, from the development of microscope imagery technique, researchers in neuroscience want to develop a brain connectome atlas. And actually, the challenge is that we uh, can obtain your ultra-scale data volumes from the optical microscopic devices or electronic microscopic devices, and we usually get very huge data volume. For example, even for a fly brain in size of 1 cubic millimeters, and it costs about 16 months to capture the EM data in the physical resolution of 4 by 4 and 40 nanometers. And the data volume is about, 106 terabytes. And now for a mouse brain, we cannot actually, it is impossible to capture the high resolution microscopic images for the whole brain, which in size of 1 cubic centimeters, and it's even impossible for capture the whole data of the data of the whole human brain. So we typically get only a very small part of the mouse brain or human brain. But even though we actually have petabyte scale data volume, and in order to efficiently analyze all this microscopic image data, so researchers have the high demand on efficient data analysis tools. So it brings the opportunity for computer guys to develop computer-assisted technology to help neuroscientists to build to analyze the microscopic images, to reconstruct the 3D neurons, to segment, and to do morphology analysis. Well, due to the very super high resolution of the image typically the resolution is nanometer, but a neuron, even a single neuron, it covers almost the whole brain or even, a half a brain. So it's very difficult to trace and to reconstruct the whole complete 3D model of a single neurons uh, in the whole brain. Here we have some examples of how detailed or how fine scale is the neuron structures. And the left figure is a cubic millimeter sized chunk of uh, a piece of a mouse cortex, and the right figure shows the reconstructed, only a few of the reconstructed mouse neurons. And well, here is some snaps dendrites with the vesicles, which describe how the neurons interact with each other, how the signals um, transmitted through different neurons. Well, the vesicles is shown in the white dots here. So we can see that, well, even to build, it's very, very challenging to build a whole brain connectome atlas. Well, for there are a lot of research groups in all over the world. For example, the Leachman's lab is a very famous neuroscience lab in Harvard University. They develop a lot of computer graphics tools and visualized tools to uh, facilitate the the construction of a brainstorm atlas. Well, it starts from the sliced images in very high resolution using serial multi-sense electronic microscopic devices. And then they use some image processing techniques to register the image size together and build a 3D volume data of the piece of the brain cube. And then we typically in under the physical resolution of a nanometer scale, we usually get a petascale volume of the data in order to extract the neurons, different cells, and to uh, analyze the structures and the functional of the neurons. So we typically need the petascale volume rendering of the underlying microscopic data, and we also have to do automatic segmentation. And even with the well-established segmentation techniques, it still requires a lot of human proofreading work to connect the over-segmented pieces together. Then we can do the morphology analysis and the visualization of the neural structures and the similarities related to functions. Researchers have devoted a lot of efforts to develop tools, computer techniques to help neuroscientists to do data analysis in the petascale image analysis. And we started our work on brain atlas construction since 2016, actually. And we worked together with the scientists in the School of Biology, University of Science and Technology of China. And actually, they provide a whole brain of optical microscopic images of a mouse, and they just want to find someone who can develop computer automatic data analysis tools to actually to reconstruct all the neurons in the whole brain, and then they want to do some the full whole brain reconstruction of neuron populations. Then they want to do morphology analysis of the neurons because the structures, the shapes, and topologies are very highly related to the neural functions. So based on this rough idea, we developed, we have conducted extensive research on studying new techniques or for data analysis or 3D modeling of neurons in the whole brain microscopic images. And today I will talk about the three parts of our recent work. Well, the first part is that to reconstruct 3D neurons from the volumetric data. Well, though we have witnessed the fast development of the 2D semantic segmentation algorithms and 3D point cloud segmentation algorithms in computer vision, in computer graphics. But for data analysis or segmentation or 3D reconstruction in neuroscience, we face a lot of new challenges because of the data has different characteristics compared with the nature image, and we also have some new challenges on data annotation. You can see that the image, well, we usually have the black and white, the grayscale images, and we have a huge data volume, and well, the image quality is quite actually is not high compared to nature image, and also we need to do very dense 3D reconstruction segmentation for the fine scale structures in nanometer scale, and also for a complete single neuron, it covers a very significant long range across the brain compared to the physical resolution of each voxel. So the traditional reconstruction method usually requires a lot of parameter tuning work because there are different devices. The image quality varies a lot, and the traditional methods are usually very not robust enough, and also because of the parameter tuning work and also the long range of a whole neuron structure, so they typically require semi-manually tracing of the fine neuron structure. And if we want to apply deep learning techniques on this particular application, well, we all know that for these deep learning methods, we usually require sufficient training data, but in this particular area, the data annotation cost is very high, and because we cannot use crowdsourcing, we specific domain knowledge is required to do data annotation, and we don't have enough training data, and so usually the model trained on neural net on nature images is poorly generalized to the microscopic images in neuroscience. And well, in order to eliminate the requirement on annotation data, we want to apply some high-level priors to help the efficiency to improve the efficiency on deep learning based algorithms. Well, especially we are working on this 3D reconstruction and the morphology analysis for neurons. We want to encode the structure priors of the neurons to develop deep learning techniques and to in order to reduce the data annotations. Well, we can see that in order to generate the training data with annotation, we can actually use the traditional method to generate some pseudo labels to for data for network training, but the pseudo labels usually contains a lot of noise. So we want to use the structure prior to guide the training of deep neural networks to elevate the impact of analysis. And based on the idea, well, I will introduce some specific techniques applied for neural reconstruction and the segmentation and the morphological representation learning. Well, the first work is neural reconstruction from OM image, which means the optical microscope images. And the task is defined as given data volume, a volumetric data set, and we want to reconstruct all the new three neurons with skeletons. And so, well, the challenge includes, well, the deficiency of data annotations, and they have a large variety of complex neural morphology, and actually the image quality is very low compared with the nature images. So, there are a series of traditional methods for neural tracing with handcrafted features, but actually the traditional methods are very sensitive to image analysis and require parameter tuning. And since 2016, there are some studies to apply deep learning, especially for 3D segmentation networks on the microscopic image, and actually they spend a lot of efforts on data annotations. So we want to improve the segmentation and reconstruction performance without requiring more data annotation. And the idea is that we can use some traditional methods to generate the pseudo labels for data network training, but then we can progressively update the network and update the tracing results to iteratively improve the power of the segmentation network. So usually, if we want to do neural reconstruction from a volumetric OM image, we first segment the signals of the neurons first, then do some global tracing of the skeletons of each neuron. But in order to train the 3D segmentation network, we need the volumetric and the both voxel-wise label of the neural signals. But actually, due to the super high resolution of the images, we actually it require a lot of manual efforts if we want to generate the training labels, the segmentation labels for training the segmentation network. So in order to generate the data annotation manually, we use some traditional neural tracer. Well, the neural tracer actually implicitly applies some high-level or more global priors on the neural structure. So we start from the OM images and we apply some new traditional tracer to generate neural models. So because of this traditional tracer might be very sensitive to image quality and to image analysis, so the pseudo labels are not perfect enough, but at the first iteration, we can train the segmentation network, then generate a segmentation model. Then we use the segmentation results to enhance the original image. Then we fit the enhanced images into the neural tracer again to generate better reconstruction results. Then we iteratively train our segmentation network and generate better reconstruction results. So with this progressive learning framework, we can the segmentation network becomes powerful and more powerful and powerful. So after 3 to 5 iterations, we can improve the segmentation network a lot. So this shows the results of our progressive learning neuron population reconstruction results. We first compare the performance of a single neuron reconstruction on the bigger neuron dataset. So you can see that compared to the manual tracing results, our results can generate very complete neural structures. And here's another results. And our work can also work on the 3D tracing for multiple neurons together where we build our data set called Visor 40. And so compared with the previous traditional tracing method, ours have more complete neural structures. And we also show some quantitative comparison, and you can see that with different traditional tracers, our progressive learning framework can increase the reconstruction accuracy. But you can see that for this framework, there are still a lot of noises in the pseudo labels, even we get better segmentation results and better tracing results. And also, it requires several iterations for progressive learning, and for each iteration takes a lot of time and the computational resources. So we want to remove the noises in pseudo labels with higher level structure priors. We found that actually there are a large number of reconstructed neurons in the public dataset, but there is no original microscope data. So we cannot use this for pairwise training, but actually these reconstructed neural models provide us the high-level morphological priors. Well, how to represent these priors? We propose to encode the morphological priors with a GAN framework. So the idea is, well, we can train a segmentation network with the pseudo labels generated by traditional neural tracer, but in order to evaluate the segmentation results, we not only use the voxel-wise loss for the segmentation, but we also measure the capability of the goodness of the reconstructed structure according to the morphological prior learned or encoded with this GAN framework. So according to, even we don't have the original microscopic data in the data set, we crop the 3D, the part of the reconstructed neural structures, and then we use a discriminator to evaluate the goodness of the segmented structure. So with this generative adversarial network framework, we can train the 3D segmentation network with noisy labels, but with the guidance of high-level morphological priors, we can improve the quality of the segmentation results. So this framework does not require iterative training. It only requires one-pass training with the existing 3D models for morphological priors. So we compare this we name our network as MP neural reconstruction then. So compared with different traditional neural tracers, our method can significantly improve the completeness of the reconstruction neural structure. And compared with our progressive learning framework, this MP and again achieve comparable reconstruction accuracy, but it significantly reduced the computational and memory cost since only one pass training is required. And we also show some reconstructed results here. You can see that compared to the ground truth label, our method can generate a more complete structure for the long nodes here. And then since due to the limitation of the hardware or computation or memory storage resources, and we cannot complete this reconstruction, the neuron reconstruction of the whole brain at once. So we should we design a fully automatic 3D neural reconstruction system for the ultra scale microscopic images. And well, the idea is very simple, and the key is to do neural fusion across overlapping blocks. Actually, for each brain slice, we first do 3D neural reconstruction in each block, but we actually design some propagation strategy to select to start from the cell bodies and then trace the neurons to adjacent blocks. And after we reconstruct neuron pieces in each block, we design some neuron fusion method to combine all the reconstructed neuron skeleton together to complete the neuron population reconstruction on the brain-wide slice. So here we show the reconstruction results on the 42 slice of a mouse neuron, and each neuron, different neurons are shown in different color, and you can see, well, the neurons are actually, very different in the 3D morphology and structures. And then after we reconstruct, after we reconstruct thousands and tens of thousands and even millions of neurons, and we want to do morphological analysis for the data analysis to understand the relations between neural structures, morphology, and functions. So we should develop some efficient or very powerful morphological representation to for large scale data analysis. And based on a powerful morphological representation, we can do neuron classification and we can do neuron retrieval in a large scale data set. Well, but the difficulty is, the challenge is, well, how should we describe the morphology difference or morphology features of a neuron according to the 3 skeleton or 3D surfaces, right? So, well, because of the reconstructed neural model have naturally the connections between different branches, we propose to use the graph representation and apply. We want to learn the morphology representation based on graph neural network. Well, also we face the same challenges that we don't have enough training data, and so we want to apply contrastive learning techniques to do unsupervised training with a large-scale neural database. So we design some neural augmentation methods, including the branch dropping, the pointer propagation method to generate different copies of one encoding neuron, and then we design a morphology graph neural network to learn the morphological representation of each neuron. So by constructive laws, we can train the morphological graph neural network to learn the embedding for the encoding neuron based on the graph representation. And then for large scale neuron retrieval, which has very high requirements on the efficiency, we want to further convert the learned embedding vector, which are continuous values, into a binary hash code. So we design a second part of the morphological representation network called the binary hash code embedding network for high efficiency. But the difficulty is how can we train this binary code based on together with the graph neural network for morphological representation. Well, we design a alpha blending strategy based on the straight-through estimate. So we all know that in order to train the feature embedding part, well, for the binary hash code, we actually do the gradient estimation according to the continuous value, but actually we do a fusion by increase the weight for the binary and the continuous embedding value z to progressively train the feature embedding network. So after jointly train the graph neural network for feature representation and the binary hashing code embedding network together, we improve the representation of the capability of the graph neural network. Here we show the results on a neuron classification based on a database that contains 5,000 neurons. Well, these are the two variants of our model. One is just with the embedding z, which have the continuous value feature, and the hashing max CNN is generates the binary code. But we can see that with the more precise feature representation, the MACGN achieved the highest performance on neuron classification. But even with our binary hashing embedding, we can obtain very similar results with the MAP GNN. And we do a set of ablation studies on the neuron classification network. We can see that with the full model, and they compared with the full model, the hashing can actually generate very comparable results for each types of neurons. And also, because of the hashing binary code is particularly designed for fast neural retrieval on a large scale data set. So we compare the retrieval performance on two data sets, the 5K 1,000 data set and the 100,000 data set. We can have very similar performance, but with the binary hashing code, the retrieval speed is very faster than the original MAP-GNN. And here we show some retrieval results. We can see that based on our morphology representation, we can very efficiently get the neurons have similar morphology and similar shapes. And according to the manual label, we can see that the reconstructed result is assigned as the same type of neurons. And then Well, he, this is designed for more complete neural skeletons. And actually, uh, there is another type of microscopic images, which in the resolution of a nanometer. Well, the we see a lot of techniques have been developed for automatic segmentation on this volumetric uh, EM data, and typically they generate over-segmented results. And in order to get a complete neurons, where we can there's a paper published by the Seoul lab in Princeton. They reported that, well, in order to reconstruct or to trace the about 1,000 neurons, it costs about 50% a year of human proofreading, given the automatic reconstruction results. So we want to do some data selection or data filtering for the whole brain neural tracing. So we want to classify the over segmented pieces according to the 3D shape, and then we design another unsupervised morphological representation for EM segments, where we represent the neuron pieces based on the surface points, where it works like to learn a morphology representation for 3D point cloud, where we use the same idea of contrastive learning. We follow a typically contrastive learning framework, which requires the data augmentation method to generate the two compares of the input, and we learn the representation, projection, and compare the prediction between the different views of the same input. But actually, the instance level contrast have difficulties to represent fine scale difference of the 3D shape. So we design a cluster instance contrast model to enforce the representation learning to make the distribution more compact for the same cluster. So we design a clustering strategy and compare the predicted field labels and the cluster instance similarity to make to enforce the compactness of representation learning. And we compare our method with some typical state-of-the-art contrastive learning method, including the SWAP and the BYOL, and we can see that our method achieves the best results on the neural segment classification. And we also visualize the learned morphological representation in the feature space. We can see that without the sub-figure B is the results without our cluster and instance contrast model, and with our cluster instance contrast model, we can the feature embedding are more discriminative for segment classification. So in conclusion, we can see that the computer graphics and computer vision techniques significantly facilitate the ultra-scale data analysis for the brain connectome atlas reconstruction. And in particular, we focus on the 3D reconstruction and morphological analysis of neural models, and we apply some structure-guided idea for semi-supervised learning or unsupervised learning to exploit the high-level structure priors and reduce the requirement on data annotation. And actually, we can see that, well, based on this whole workflow for connectome reconstruction, we still have a lot of opportunities for data analysis and visualization, and especially for the long range neural tracing, for the visualization, and also we need the simulation technique is also desired to simulate the dynamic neural activities and recover the relation between neuron structure and functions. So this is my talk, and you're welcome to ask questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for Chen's great talk. So it is very insightful, and it's very interesting to see that there are a lot of quite general methods that it can also be utilized in different kinds of quite specialized medical data. So while the team is collecting questions, I would like to start with my own questions for you. So I would like to ask several quite general questions. So for your 3D and 2D neuron reconstruction work, actually, especially for the 3D reconstruction, how the success of the 3D neuron reconstruction measured? I saw some slices for the 2D things. So are they the thing to measure, quantitatively measure the success, or there is some other specific way to measure the success of the reconstruction?
Okay. Do you mean the images like this one?
I mean the 3D neuron reconstruction one. Yeah, I believe it's this one. Several, tens of slices. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Actually, well, this is actually a cube. This is in 3D, but it looks like 2D because when we project the pixel intensity onto the 2D plane, but actually, well, yeah, this one is actually a cube. So, and the reconstructed results are also 3D skeletons. But let me show you I think I have a visualization. Oh, yeah, here one. You can see that actually it's very a thin slice, but it's in 3D. And
okay. So they are not a 3D volume by accumulating 2D layers. It is a real 3D volume.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Yeah. So I also had a question about all the deep models you used for reconstructing the neurons and doing the analysis. So there are a lot of pre-trained models for segmentation, for reconstruction, for even for GANs, for image processing. So how generalizable of these models in your specific area of those medical image processing? I mean, are you using all the models? Are you training all the models from scratch, or you can also transfer some pre-trained models and to get a better results?
Yes, we take the common structure of a segmentation network like UNet, 3D UNet, but we have to retrain it with from random initialization because the pre-trained model using the nature image doesn't work on the macroscopic image because you can see that when the image, the textures and the intensity are typically very different from what we have for nature objects. So we really retrain our segmentation network from scratch.
Yeah. So all right. So actually yeah, yes, because your works are actually very interesting. So I have another question for you. So for the morphological operation, morphological analysis on the I believe it's the neuron structure. You have a graphical model there. So I wonder, yeah, so you have you build a graph here. So I wonder for those microscopy images for those neurons, is a structure similar for all the different neuron images? So that you can give a fixed kind of a structure, and you just need to figure out the difference between their lengths and nodes, or the topology of themselves, of, for example, the node numbers and how they are connected are the distinguishable features you are going to analyze.
Yeah, very good question. Actually, well, the traditional method in this area, with the neuroscientists usually define some rules, or use some handcrafted features to describe the topology, like what you say, the node number, the branch numbers, and the angles between different branches, right? And well, these handcrafted features cannot be well generalized uh, to more types of neurons, because with the automatic segmentation method, we get more and more neuron data. And with this handcrafted feature, it's very difficult to find the fine scale difference between the neuron structures.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, let's thank Professor Chen again. Thank you for your excellent report. Okay, I'm
Thank you.
going to share my screen now. Okay, so our next talk will be given by Dr. Yifan Peng. So Dr. Yifan Peng joined the University of Hong Kong in 2022. Before that, he worked as a postdoctoral researcher at Stanford University. His research interest lies in the unique intersections of computer graphics, computer vision, optics, and artificial intelligence. In particular, the joint design of hardware and software for intelligent visual computing systems. So today, he will be talking about computational cameras and displays pro, incorporating optics and machine intelligence for visual computing systems. Please let's welcome Dr. Yifan Peng.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. Let me try to share the screen just 1 second. Okay, where is my screen? So everything good? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, good to go.
Okay, sounds good. Good evening or good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you for having me here today. So my name is Evan Peng. So I actually just joined Hong Kong U this year from Stanford. And today I'm going to talk about the computational cameras and displays pro. So as I highlighting here, I would call it CCD pro. Okay, let's see. So I think you will agree with me that Zoom is one of the few pandemic winners. We are still in kind of like post-pandemic era. And as a perfect example of visual computing systems, telecommunication is the process from capture to display, right? That involves innovation from multiple disciplines. So to have a delightful experience, we need to have what? We need to have like decent cameras, sensors, and displays. So let's see, for example, the camera end. Since we have to do the remote talk today, so I need to use the webcam. And if you use the embedded webcam of my laptop, I look terrible, even though it's so convenient, so cheap. But if I order the external professional video cam, I will look much better. Still, it is 2D, we all prefer to see each other with the 3D vision sensors, images, and 3D displays. Apparently, we are not there yet. So we will be really interested in diving into enabling great visual experience from cameras to displays. Then we say the core methodology behind this kind of research is to enable the joint design, or we say the co-design of hardware and software. So under this kind of high-level concept, my reason work could be characterized as these two branches: neural optics for cameras, and of course, neural holography for immersive displays. So I've been so lucky to have some nice work coming out for both ends here on incorporating optics, AI, computer graphics, and computer vision advances. So today I'm going to briefly share some of them with taking the journey of a bunny. So let's see the camera end first. So in the animal kingdom, eyes have co-evolved with the brain, right? In many different ways, each perfectly adapted to their different environment. So notice that conventional cameras, like the one on your cell phone, they are designed like the human eye. So how would the cameras look like if we try to design them to be more liking the eyes of this mantis shrimp, for example? I'm not entirely sure the answer, but I kind of believe it should be domain specific. So back to our daily life, there are so many different applications where robust machine vision is required. Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, cell phones, medical devices, and of course, AR, VR, MR. Then we'll be curious about why images and their ISP are pretty much the same across so many applications. How can we make the cameras smarter and like human visual systems on the lines of? So we say it's all about the co-design of optics, sensing, and computation. So first, we try to refresh the perspective from ray to wave optics because of the huge benefits. Then we talked about developing optical elements, or we call DOEs, including a recently intensively discussed holographic and meta services, will be the promising platform for next generation smart devices, for example, AR, VR, MR systems. Then we ask questions again. Could the choice of algorithm influence what type of optics we could use? Could the optical performance dictate which algorithm will be the best? It would be really interesting to dive into the code design in a smarter way. So we try to propose a novel design paradigm, which we call deep optics or differentiable optics. So let's see. We love bunny because we are in computer graphics. Human visual systems tell us this is a bunny. It's also a machine vision problem. How could your machine vision cameras or your VR, AR, MR headset, for example, telling you this is a bunny? The conventional sequential imaging pipeline from left to right, people in optics have extensively looked into tailoring good optical designs. And then people in the signal image processing community design state-of-the-art demosaicing and denoising algorithms. And then we have the machine learning and computer vision research, resulting in very deep neural network models, so that can tell you this is a bunny. So what's the insight? We say people in different communities all do their job great, but kind of like independently. So with modern machine intelligence tools, now we try to optimize this entire pipeline, this whole pipeline, end to end with a differentiable model. Then we will have some benefits, right? For example, performance and robustness scans. We are designing a domain-specific hardware that may reduce the footprint and the cost. And we can say this is the new design space. Now we can design a camera, including both optics and image processing algorithms, that works best for detecting bunnies. So the core part of this kind of a differentiable pipeline is all about how to formulate the differentiable lenses and differentiable image processing. Okay, so under this deep optics, or we call neural optics design paradigm, we have at Stanford implemented different applications covering almost most fundamental user requirements for cameras, including like a single shot, extended depth of field, HDR, super resolution SPAD, large field of view imaging, depth estimation, full spectral imaging, and of course, like 3D microscope. So from a broader perspective, we say deep optics is promising in designing domain-specific imaging systems for both low-level and high-level visual tasks. So today, I'm going to show you a few examples. Okay, first, let's target the full spectrum imaging with one single diffractive optical element. This is valuable since color dispersion is the most problematic issue of diffractive optics we're using as imaging lenses. So for this project, during the focal pass, the ground truth is the hyperspectral imaging dataset. And we can parameterize the lens using rotationally symmetric model. Then we can involve the images with point spread functions and consider the color curves and noise. So we have the measurement data. So let's slow the measurement data into the image recovery unit, which is the rest unit in this case. Then we can calculate the loss with some kind of like regularization. So for the backward pass, we just backpropagate this loss all the way back to the lens profile and the rest unit. So the pipeline looks very similar for almost all the projects. But at this point, I have not shown you how good the end-to-end optimization would be. So here are the simulation results of 3 different designs under this full spectrum imaging example. The left one, linear lens, which is the baseline. The second one is the sequential design diffractive Aquaman, which was our earlier work back to like 7 years ago. In this case, the optics was designed first, and then we optimized image recovery network independently. So as you can tell, the end-to-end design on the right is much better, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And of course, we need to experimentally demonstrate it. So we build a prototype lens, and these here are selected experimental results. The diffractive Aquaman is fabricated using grayscale photolithography. The lens is flat and thin, as you can tell. So we observe that the color fidelity is preserved, although there's noticeable contrast loss due to the low diffraction efficiency of the prototype diffractive optical elements. But I have to say, as the proof of concept, deep optics design paradigm works very well. Okay, most of you may wonder how to realize more photorealistic imaging quality, just like regular cameras, because what I showed you earlier was kind of crap. So if you have a multi-camera cell phone, I believe everyone has that, and it's one of the lenses is promoted as wide field of view lens. In many cases, the wide field of view imaging capability is the limiting factor for the total thickness of the module. So we try to realize high quality large field of view imaging with the thin-plane optics. In comparison to existing thin-plane computational imaging methods, including many of our earlier work, the proposed method actually achieves substantially wider field of view due to a well-motivated co-design of optics and the length recovery. And this is one single element. Okay, so we aim to have a lens less corruptive for aberrations. And first thing coming out in mind is an asymmetrical risk, right? Because people will always ask, can we try the state-of-art things? So here we show the visualization of the focusing performance of a state-of-art asymmetrical lens. So different colors indicate the light beams incident from different angles for the lens. So we see that realizing the ideal phase profile of the lens that contributes to perfect focus is intractable over the full aperture. Unless you have a curve sensor, which we don't. So what if we optimize the lens with the traditional optical design pipeline to enforce sharp distribution for off-axis region? So we probably end up with the behavior looking like this. Still not great. So what would be the insight? We say for single element, even with asymmetrical surfaces, it still fails to enforce good focusing contribution. So we say perfect focus is intractable across full field of view for single element. Optics matters. So what we need to have the customized optics, the customized lens for our imaging. And from a high-level perspective, a dual mixture point spread function is designed to trade up the focal power across different field of view, meaning different incident angles, while still preserving the fine details and local contrast. So why this kind of design? Here's the insight. As I showed on this slide, the early feature layers of recent deep neural network models like CNNs. They are gradient-like filters that respond to local contrast as essential low-level information, and this provides guidance for the lens design. So we seek a point spread function that shows the dual mixture distribution that preserves local contrast. Next, a lens reconstruction, in particular, a GAN-based lens reconstruction that uses a neural network model in a robust learning framework is exploited so that we can recover the images. Okay, since we are using deep neural networks and once having the optics, it's always painful to acquire realistic data set. So we try to build a closed loop display capture setup that allows us to generate a large amount of training data. And this is realized by capturing images that are sequentially displayed on a high resolution calibrated HDR monitor that we can save extra calibration effort in a while. So you will see this kind of a camera in the loop feedback again later on for other projects. So the insight is try to bridge the gap between synthetic data and real world data in a fully automatic manner. Of course, we need to show experiments. So here we show the zoom and pan effects on the captured and recovered images. All of these are outdoor real capture data with a commercial Sony sensor and our optimized and fabricated lens. So as you can tell, the thin plate lens on the center is only 3 millimeters in thickness. So we try to demonstrate the realistic photographic capability with this kind of one single lens. The only full size results are at least like 6K or 4K resolution. Great. So I've shown you several low-level visual tasks. Now you will be interested about high-level vision. So we have also applied the deep optics design paradigm to the depth estimation and all-in-focus imaging. To this end, the pipeline is very similar, pretty much the same as what I showed you earlier. But this time, we use the RGBD images of a training data set. So another change is the loss function. Then the error is back propagated into the CNN parameters and the surface profile of the face coded aperture. Let's directly see the results. So as always, we design and prototype our lens. So here are experimentally captured results of indoor and outdoor scenes. So pay attention to these two columns, right? Our result. So as you can tell, so our methods can recover the depth information more accurately, especially paying attention to the outdoor plant scene on the bottom right corner. So we say with this kind of end-to-end design optics and algorithms, the depth estimation is much more accurate and precise. Okay, we talk a lot about domain-specific applications. So what about, think about the other end, the scene-specific. So in this case, we say imaging systems are widely applied in harsh environments where the performance of shallow design systems may deviate from expectation, like extreme temperatures, like lack of illumination, like full of dust. So they bring image degradation in different levels, which a single model can or might pay a large cost to cope with, right? In this case. So we try to explore, can we do a multi-branch model for scene-specific lens recovery? And this would definitely bring some kind of like natural advantages. So a multi-branch model, each branch doesn't need to interfere with each other and respond to a specific series only. So we can actually reduce the burden of each branch. Let's say the fine-tune of each branch becomes much more easier. So we try to target the temperature robust because we say regarding optics, the fluctuating temperature affects both the ray reflective properties and surface form factor of optical elements, leading to a temperature-sensitive focal power and point spread function behavior, as you can tell, in most cases. As such, a shallow design imaging systems records images cropped with different levels of blur, aberration, and noise at various temperature. So on the right, we actually did a simulation on the image dataset. So you can see that different temperatures will result in different levels of image degradation reflected by the different points, PSNR. Okay, so, but it's unaffordable for the hardware to specify the model at each individual temperature, right? So we need to explore the temperature division and data mixture scheme so we can reduce the number of the branches. So in this case, we kind of like setting up the data PSNR and try to divide the entire set and entire temperature range to a few temperature ranges. So we can actually list to the compressed network scale. And now you see the camera in the loop set up again. So for acquiring the substantial data set automatically, we build this closed loop display capture setup, but with the temperature control devices. So we build a chamber with the control installation for heating up or cooling down the lenses and the sensors. So during the acquisition, the chamber maintains the temperature at the desired constant value in our desired temperature range. Then the camera captures images shown on the monitor through a piece of high transparency glass. So now you see the image processing pipeline. Again, it's very similar like what we have been doing for a few years. However, we do have a few differences in terms of like we have to divide the temperature range into a few different small ranges, and we improve. So for example, we have the low, middle, and high temperature branches. So we have different models, and then we have a generator, a GAN-based image recovery overlay. So let's just see the results. So here we show the simulated degradations and the recovery results of a vehicle lens. So as you can tell, the multi-branch model actually helps in resolving good image quality for different temperatures. Now we show you the real capture measurement and recovery results of a phone camera module. So it's basically a regular commercial cell phone module. And this is the outdoor capture scene. So if you pay attention to the texture details of this stone lion, you can see the difference. Okay, so let's take a break here and summarize the take-up for the first part, neural optics. The high-level concept is the co-design of optics and evidence. So the goal is to enable optimal visual performance onto ultra-thin and lightweight optics. So to achieve this, we try to explore the optimization in both optical design and image post-processing. And this requires exploring multiple disciplines like physics, graphics, vision, and AI, which I believe is the tendency in this field. And regarding output, so what I just presented were only a few applications that we have prototyped in the past few years. From the broader perspective, deep optics, or we say neural optics, is promising in designing domain-specific imaging systems for both low-level and high-level visual tasks. Okay, back to this slide. So now we have already explored great tools for better observing the world. So next, let's talk about better visualizing the world. So we need to have the neural holographic display, a flexible computer-generated holographic framework for VR, AR, and MR. So let's first brainstorm what kind of display could be promising for virtual, augmented, and mixed reality. There are all kinds of science fiction movies draw an amazing picture for us, right? But then back to reality, there are usually two form factors. Either the large-scale live view displays that aim for creative sharing among multiple users, or we have the near-eye displays that aim for immersive personal experience. Either end, I would say, is a system-level solution that incorporates capture, rendering, display, and interaction. So I'm sure everyone has experienced like wearable devices recently somehow. So basically, you look at the virtual 2D image of a micro display created by some kind of like magnifying optics. The illusion of depth is created using binocular disparity. Unfortunately, this fixed focal plane design is unnatural and not comfortable. So we have this virtuous accommodation conflict, which will result in this visual discomfort and other negative effects. I guess that's one of the main reasons you will feel uncomfortable after wearing the stupid headset for more than 10 minutes. Moreover, we say retina blur or depth of field is an important depth cue, which is not easily supported by fixed focal displays. So in the optics and computer graphics communities, a number of computational near-eye display technologies have been developed to partially overcome this problem. However, none of them is without limitations. We have the varifocal displays, effective and simple, but they require mechanical motional parts or focus tunable lenses. Those are difficult to achieve with the device form factor constraint. Then we have the multi-plane displays. Again, they require extremely high-speed specialized modulators or focus tunable lenses or multiple display panels, increasing the system complexity. Then we have live view displays, which have been intensively investigated in the past decade, but their spatial angular resolution is kind of limited fundamentally. There's actually a technology that's been there in optics for decades, holograms. So holography actually utilizes diffraction to achieve high image resolution, contrast, depth, and other benefits. So here are some examples of the optically recorded holograms. The results are pretty amazing, right? At the first glance, like the left one, it's even hard to distinguish between the real and the virtual image. But even after decades after their invention, holographic displays have still not becoming mainstream technology, even though everyone is hearing about the word hologram or holo something every day. So we are interested in computer-generated holography that can make a real display. So we have been interested in this kind of technology that can make a real display. And most of this work was conducted at Stanford. So every project is a system level work that has been both the hardware and software prototyping under this kind of framework of neural holographic near-eye displays. So on the bottom, we showed a few real display results on our several prototypes. So let's explore the challenges in the context of holographic near-eye displays next. So here is the illustration of a veneer-type holographic displays using a specialized modulator, which is commonly used for almost all designs. So we have a laser emits coherent light that's collimated by the lens and propagates to the specialized modulator. Here, the phase of the view is delayed in purposeful manner. The view continues to propagate, and the interference creates the visible intensity pattern that is perceived as an image like this bunny by the user. So how to compute a hologram is one of the core challenges of computer-generated holography. So here are usually two types of the CGH algorithms, direct and iterative ones. So I'm not going to talk about details, just a quick summary. We say iterative methods are typically slower but better, and direct methods are usually fast but often not great. So based on our simulation, we can actually figure out that that's usually an upper bound of iterative methods. And we would also like to address that the key challenges lies on the trade-off between the image quality and the runtime. So in next, I'm going to talk about we actually can do the stochastic gradient descent method. A naive solution can achieve very good image quality. We have also developed a neural holographic-based, neural network-based holography, which we call HoloNet architecture, that can achieve a similar quality, but in real time. So now we have already identified the problems. So I'm going to show you how to do this from heuristic to deterministic. So first of all, we say the goal of any CGH method is to solve an objective function. So we have F hat, the simulated model of the free space propagation, and A is the target amplitude. So we say the physical light transfer in the display F is often slightly different from F hat because all the aberrations, like the hardware issues. We will get back to this later. For now, all we have is the simulated model F hat. So we can use this very simple gradient descent update rule, where we start the initial guess of hologram, we simulate the forward model, we compare the simulated result with the target using some loss function, and then we backpropagate the error into the phase. This simple approach will eventually converge to a good solution. But we say challenges always come from experiments. So all methods look great in simulation, as the top row shows. But if we introduce some kind of like model mismatch to mimic the real case of experiments, all methods fail. The second row, this is not surprising. We say physics matters. But it's really hard to calibrate a holographic display at a required accuracy because everything happening over there is around a few micrometers, or we say wavelength level. So the research has tried to come up with a family of techniques that do exactly this calibration in a fully automatic manner. So we try to call it camera in the loop holographic. So assume we have two propagation paths. One uses the simulated model, while the other is the physical display with optical aberrations. Given a face mask, a hologram, we simultaneously show it to both the virtual spatial light modulator and the physical one. Then we have the simulated light transport on the top and the physical light transport in the experiment. So we can have a camera in the loop to capture the image of the physical display, which is then used to derive the loss compared with the target amplitude. So let's see the backward path where we consider only the simulated model on the top. The loss between the target and the capture amplitude is then backpropagated to the simulated amplitude and continues to backpropagate to the virtual spatial light modulator so we can update the phase hologram. So in the next iteration, the phase hologram is used for the two forward propagation paths shown in the earlier slide. So let's see some results. So I show you the direct comparison with the idealized model and the camera in the loop model. We see that we can achieve a much better image quality with this simple idea. The colors, contrast are a lot better, noise is reduced. And notice that all of these results are real displayed and captured holographic images. So the challenge is that we need a camera in the loop for each individual image, right? To overcome this limitation, we came up with the idea of splitting the optimization into two stages, the training and the inference stage. So during the training stage, we use the camera to estimate a physics-inspired model-based representation of the light transform using a training set of images. For example, the model can have the variance of the source intensity, having the technical polynomials representing the optical aberrations. So during the inference, we don't need a camera. So there is a one-time calibration procedure that requires the camera in the physical setup. But once this stage is concluded, arbitrary holograms can be synthesized. So remember that I said earlier, there will be a runtime issue in the trade-off, right? So to this point, we then move to the neural network part. We call it HoloNet, which is a feed-forward network architecture that's pre-trained over the set of images. So this inverse network contains two small units and a few physics-inspired terms that adjusted from the camera calibrating model. So let's see the basic highlight. We have a target image as input. We convert it into amplitude. We use a small unit to predict the phase at the target plane. The complex value field is propagated to the spatial light modulator plane. And here we send the field through another small unit to calculate the phase-only spatial light modulator pattern, which is the hologram. And using this hologram, we simulate the forward model, and then we compare the result to the target image and backpropagate the error into these two units during the training time. So next, we need to adjust the intermediate complex field with the physically calibrated model using our camera in the loop technique. So now we have the physics-inspired neural network for computer-generated holography. Okay, so remember that we have always been using lasers, as many other work. Then we say spectral artifacts is inevitable due to use of coherent light sources. Eye safety concern is also raised for direct view near eye display applications. And one of the naive solutions in the optics and computer graphics communities is to use incoherent illumination. But again, we try to do it in a smarter way. So we have been investigating partially coherent light sources, including LEDs or superluminescent LEDs, which we call SLEDs. These partially coherent sources are different from the lasers, as it can emit over reasonably large area or reasonably broad spectrum, as you can tell on this slide. So what we have been doing recently is trying to apply the camera in the loop technique to partially coherent light sources so that we can effectively deconvolve the blurred images. Let's closely see the results. This is the comparison of holographic display results using the laser and LED. So we see that LEDs reduce speckle but introduce blur, as you can tell. And this is the comparison between LED and SLED. Both of them are partially coherent light sources, and they don't suffer from speckle, but only SLEDs produce sharp images. Now we have the comparison between using the laser and the SLED. So to this end, we say the SLED delivers the overall best results in practice. Here's another capture example, because this year is the year of tiger. So you can see the face pattern on the left, generated using our camera in the loop partially coherent holographic. And on the right, the real capture results displayed on our holographic display prototype. Even though you zoom in, you can see the image quality looks really great. So this is a holographic reconstructed tiger. Okay, so all results I just presented were based on the first generation of neural holographic representation. So we try to do better. Most recently, at Stanford, we introduced a new wave propagation model that, that leverages two neural network models on complex value field that can be naturally extended to a 3D setting. So same as the previous project, our model is trained to predict the holographic images using a camera focused on multiple target planes. I'm going to skip the technical details, which you can refer to our papers and project web pages. Let's see results directly. So with propagation through our trained models, we can again use the stochastic gradient descent algorithm to optimize phase pattern. So here we show the comparison of results with different wave propagation models, including the vanilla angular spectrum, the previously proposed neural holography, and the hardware in the loop models, and our CNN plot CNN model on the lower right. Again, all these results are real displayed and capture holographic images. So as you can tell, our new model actually achieves the best result, both quantitatively and qualitatively. But we say holographic is aiming for 3D. So in computing 3D holograms, the model starts with the RGBD image. The depth map is quantized into a set of layer masks like this bunny. That allows the target image, the target bunny, to be layered across different planes. These target layers are used to supervise the multiplane output to compute the phase pattern with the help of the camera in the loop technology. So let's see results, experimental capture results. So on the lower left, we have calibrated the wave propagation model. It actually works really well for the path in focus, like where the red arrows pointed, as you can tell, by focusing back and forth of this bookshelf. Why is it still noisy and autofocus path? Because we didn't constrain the autofocus path at this moment. So let's play it again. So on the lower right, we actually propose to use additional regularization of smoothness prior on the face, which effectively reduce the speckle for autofocus pass. So as you can tell, the lower right now is behaving the best. And we can focus back and forth. Let's see it again, focus back and forth. One single image, but using a commercial waveguide. So as you can tell, we have the butterfly, zebra, and the traffic sign located at different depths. And with the cameras focusing back and forth, the holographic images could also be defocused. Okay, but still information that could be used is very limited, right? So from the previous results, the defocus for autofocus path still doesn't look great. We want to have the natural focus. So most recently, we have this CAM multiplex neural holographic work, which is a flexible CGH framework. So let's take a step back. We say most CGH algorithms are not directly applicable to emerging face-only specialized modulators. They are extremely fast, but offer face control with very limited precision, like this TI specialized modulator. Because we say CAM multiplexing helps bypass the bandwidth limit of current hardware. And we can use this for different scenarios, including but not limited to the image, 2.5D RGBD, 3D focus depth, and of course, 4D live view. So here I'm going to show you the example of the 3D scene. So this was the recent secret papers. We actually reached a better compromise of image quality, speckle, depth cues. So you can see these structures running back and forth, running from the bamboo to the front, right? And you can see that's focused back and forth. Your eye can be naturally focused to the bamboo or to the flank structures. And we see that the defocus plot looked much more realistic than any other work, like the bamboo on the background. And this is probably the best full color high fidelity 3D holographic displays today, I would say. Okay, so a brief summary for this part. We say we try to take first steps to combine classical CGH algorithms and optical systems with modern machine intelligence techniques to address the long-standing challenges of speed and image quality. But let's also take a step back. Current computational near-eye displays use well-established micro-display technology. Varifocal and multi-plane displays are moving into industry prototypes, right? And we have the live displays. They are a great idea, but their resolution is limited by diffraction. Holographic displays, on the other hand, are enabled by diffraction, yet it's still difficult to get as high of an image quality as with other displays. But we kind of believe it's promising to dive into the mutual vice research of live view and holographic solutions. And of course, remember that not every so-called HoloX is holo, since everyone is talking about holo. We have also a recent practical combination of focus stack acquisition plus real-time gesture and eye tracking and rendering, and using the live view head-mounted displays. So this was like presented this year actually in VR. You can see the virtual butterflies flying and playing with the real world scene. I'm not going to tell the details here, so you can refer to the papers since we have a time limit today. Great, the last project. So we know that the optical combiner of all the head-mounted displays often causes a color blending problem, especially when the virtual scene and the real scene show low color contrast. For example, HoloLens 1. This is the real capture view from HoloLens 1, as you can tell, very limited perceptual color contrast. So we try to partially overcome this without changing the hardware, only the software. So the idea is actually very simple. We try to make use of this kind of like complementary color theory of human vision system. The color of one region induces the complementary color in the neighboring region, like these two rectangular blocks on the right, as you can tell. So we try to propose a real-time color contrast enhanced rendering for optical see-through head-mounted displays, like this one. And we implement it on the HoloLens 1. And let's see the results. So as you can tell, the virtual images, the color contrast look much better when it's blended and overlap with the real scene for both the indoor and now we have the outdoor scene. And these are demonstration with different background colors, right? Our algorithm still optimize and deliver real-time rendering to enhance the color contrast when you are overlapping this volume on different color background. Okay, the summary. Let's talk about horizon. We say everyone is expecting holographic and lighter display technologies to solve many long-standing challenges of virtual, augmented, and mixed reality displays. Sounds promising. Unfortunately, I would say it's still a long way to go. Although remarkable progress has been made, I personally don't think any high-quality, true 3D, wearable, cost-effective near-eye displays will be ready very soon. And for example, one of the critical issues which research is working so hard to resolve is the limited eye box. So many research and engineering questions mentioned today are open discussion. And I think it's all about the joint design of hardware and software and human visual science. So that's the simple take-home message for everyone. I would say next generation video computing systems require exploring the combination of optics, electronics, and machine intelligence. And that's it. Thanks so much for your attention. And for all the projects I discussed today, we have the paper, video, open source script, and supplementary data, open source online. You can scan the QR code to reach out. And also feel free to shoot me messages. I would also like to thank all my collaborators in the past few years. Thanks for your attention.
Hey, thank you very much, Ivan.
Yeah.
It is a very great presentation. I would like to start with my questions. While the team's collecting other questions, if there is. So, my first question is about your differentiable camera model. So, I noticed that it can provide a very good enhancement comparing to the traditional camera model. But I wonder in this kind of a differentiable model, it needs to be optimized. So I wonder if it is capturing a video, if it is a dynamic object, will the results be consistently good? I mean, will those kind of dynamic factors that may affect the sampling of the cameras will also affect the quality of the differentiable cameras quality?
Yes, of course. I think that's a very good call you catch up this. So we have mostly demonstrating on the steady capture images, and this is mainly because several issues. A, for the optics, the exposure time is kind of like we can do the longer one. And the second one, of course, the computational capacity we are optimizing for in terms of the neural network models. But in the depth estimation project that I showed you earlier, we actually do have the dynamic scene like this one, right? As you can tell, where it's not playing. So the second column, you can see that one is actually the real-time dynamic scene. So we can still recover the depth maps and all in focus image in real time. So I think you are right. There will be always some factors affecting the performance of this differentiable camera training and the model, because like in the training stage and the inference stage may have a different environmental factors. But you can still try to fine-tune it and achieve some kind of results. It highly depends on what kind of a training that you are doing actually.
Yeah, thanks. So my next question will be a little bit detailed. It is about I noticed that in your model you learn some gradient filters, right? Am I right? For generating a better image. So how those gradient filters are produced? Is it kind of like a hardware, or it is just processed on the sensor level in the software?
If I understand your question correctly, you were referring to the large field of view imaging. And we actually show
yes.
something normal like gradient filters.
Yeah, gradient
So,
filters. Yeah.
yeah, so for that specific project, we actually didn't then the gradient filters. The one I show you there is like, because we get the insights from there, most of these kind of the CNN, the first layer models, like the filters, they looks like gradient, right? They always looks like gradient. Yeah. So what we try to do is like, how can we preserve this kind of gradient information in optics? By optimizing a lens, they can preserve this kind of gradient information because all the filters look like gradient.
Okay, that totally makes sense. Okay, so yeah, my last question is about your second part of your talk. So it is about the holographical display. So I mean, because the holographical display is always using, you know, in a room or in some kind of like a real 3D world. So in your optimization model, do you consider any environmental factors? For example, the current lighting in the room or the current, you know, anything that can affect the final perceived, you know, color or depth by the users. So do you take those kind of stuff into account?
Yes and no, I would say. So for example, since we have the camera in the room training, the calibration, so during the training stage, we capture a lot of images. So in that case, in that sense, we did have consider the room temperature change during the training. So this is also one kind of like environment. But we say no because we have not dived into other components of the lighting illumination, as you mentioned, because like we have mostly trained this for the virtual reality scene first. And in that case, we didn't have the AR scene. And then for the later on project, we did train on the AR scene, but then we have not like include the tuning of light in the illumination. So we did have another project which I show here, the color contrast enhancement for optical see-through displays. But that's not designed for photography at this moment. So it's basically two different branches we're trying to dive into. But of course, you are right. In the future, if you really want to create a practical photography display, especially for AR and MR, you might need to consider the environmental limiting factors to be encountered in the model training.
Good. Okay, thank you. So I think we can finish this webinar session now. Let's thank the two speakers again. Thank you for your excellent talks, and thank you all for your attendance. Okay, see you.
Thank you. See you. Have a good night.
You too.